Yeah.
If I could add to what she's saying, I think one of the things that we're talking about is that a lot of times, when people do things, they do comic books or they'll do a property, they'll do a film, and they want to transfer it into another medium. I think a lot of fans, like I'm a fan of comics and I love them. And I'll see like a video game or something come out and I'll be excited because I want that game to be good because I love the book.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't always work out that way because people, when things were created, especially a lot of older things, they couldn't put forethought into what other technologies would be because those things didn't exist at the time. So one of the things that we wanted to do, is if we were going to do something and there was a possibility that could go over to other mediums, is making something that was adaptable to those other things without having to compromise anything. So seeing that there's the three of us and we can all put our heads together, I can say, hey Tony, what visually would look really awesome in the book, but then might also transfer over really cool in the game. Or even with Zara's involvement, who is somebody that we can make a character that is a really awesome character that really encapsulates New York and the type of people that we see there who could play that role really well in the film. And she could. So if we were to do other things, we already kind of set those things up so that they can maintain the quality of the book and the brand throughout other iterations and other parts of multimedia.
Right on. So one last thing before we go, because you pretty much answered every question I could have possibly had.
We're thorough like that.
It's
I'm here
excellent.
for you, trying to help you out.
What were the first books that got you into comics?
As a kid?
As a kid, like.
Oh man, okay. I still remember. I had the two first books that I read was a Captain America Digest book that my mom picked up for me at a thrift store, and as a kid we didn't have a lot of money, and it was kind of ratty. But I remember the cover had Captain America fighting a sumo wrestler, and the sumo wrestler was like on the shield. And as a kid, I was like, "How's he gonna get out of this? Because that's a big guy, and he wasn't that big." And the second one was the Fantastic Four book, where somehow they were fighting evil versions of themselves with devil horns. They looked just like the Fantastic Four, but they had devil horns. It was drawn by Kirby, and Mr. Fantastic stretched all around the city to the point that anywhere you walked, you would have walked in a part of his body, which is kind of nasty, but go with that. But as a kid,
especially in Lower Manhattan.
And then the third was the Avengers versus the Fantastic Four, when they were still the Golden Age Avengers.
Yeah.
And there was a scene where the Beast, they described him as being as strong as a super gorilla, which at 5 years old made total sense. It was just dope.
Super gorillas, man.
Super gorillas don't make sense anymore, but back then,
Super
gorilla was awesome, man.
The full, part of the Flash's Road Gallery is a super gorilla.
Well, I'm still a fan of old Beast.
In comics, if you put a gorilla on the cover, your sales go up. It's a proven fact.
Tony, where's my gorilla?
Where's my gorilla?
I don't see a gorilla on there. I see a Latin lady. I want to see the gorilla.
Issue 3, Latin Lady and the Gorilla.
That's a gorilla hand right here. You just didn't know that.
That is a gorilla fist.
Yourself? What got you into comics?
I was sick. The first time I remember reading a comic, I was sick. I was laying in bed. My dad brought me a stack of comics from 5 and Dime. And my first comic I ever read that I can remember was The Death of Captain Stacy in Spider-Man. It was a reprint, I'm sure. But I was just I remember sitting there just stunned that they killed this nice old man, in this book, and it was so dramatic. For me it was amazing. So that's what got me into comics. I was hooked.
Yourself?
I have to say I have a different kind of, I just remember reading a lot of Spider-Man, a lot of Wonder Woman, a lot of the X-Men. Wolverine was very important for me growing up. And then now my tastes have changed a lot, but it's a person who got me into comics, and that's what I always remember so distinctly. And he always makes fun of me because the story is very true. It's me 4 years old with my Uncle Gus and him going through all his comics. So all of them kind of blurred into one. All I know is that they were amazing. They were like these sacred texts. I wasn't allowed to touch them. They were in their plastic. They were in their case. I would literally sit there and I'd read them down to the to the other side, last panel, and then I'd go like this. I couldn't even breathe on them, so I just had to sort of nod at him. And he'd flip the page for me, and I could keep reading. So they've all kind of turned into the same thing. All I knew was that this was an amazing universe that could only be found in these pages, and that my uncle could actually draw these characters, which he never did for me. He never drew me anything, but it was just this experience of really just loving him and his talent and what he could do, and this something that he was exposing to me. So I think that's where my love of story and characters come from. It's definitely, I think, the reason why I'm doing pretty much most of everything that I'm doing in my life now.
Right on. And last but not least, Mr. Chastain.
The ones that I remember probably wasn't the earliest ones, but some of the some of the ones that really stuck out to me were probably like financial pitfalls. Like, I mean, I remember loving Rocket Raccoon that Enola did. Nobody loved Rocket Raccoon. There was the he did the Far From the Gray Mouser. That was amazing. I think it was another financial disaster. Yeah, I liked a lot of the stuff.
Doesn't bode well for us.
I know, exactly.
He's the optimist of the entire crew. It's like,
No gorilla, and then, I mean, seriously, sir.
I'm putting a raccoon in here. But yeah, it was those kind, and I don't know. I like kind of the oddball stuff. I even like the like what was it, the Marvel Universe, the ones that just came out and just had the picture of the character and all their stats and everything.
Yeah.
I always got into those. I think that might actually be one of the first ones that I ever got.
right up.
So yeah, that's pretty much it there.
Any last words for the kids on the net?
Any last words for the kid on the net?
The kid. That one
The
kid
one
on the
kid
net.
that's gonna see this,
Don't do drugs.
don't do
Don't
drugs.
do drugs.
Don't do drugs. And read Grant Morrison, Warren Ellis, Mark Wade, Alan Moore,
And David Atchison.
David Atchison, and Reggie Huffman's kind of good too. But make sure you read those dudes.
I think the book will be out July 6th.
July 6th in the stores.
Yeah.
Put it on your pull list. Cats, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
the
very
show.
much.
Pleasure to have you. Where are we going here? There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're here in Heroes